Yeah.
Wow.
So my mom made him one for me and then one for my cousin. And I was in like fifth grade and I wore these to class pictures.
So wait. Are you saying
Yes,
you were dressed
yes, no, yes, picture it.
as a little slave girl?
Yes, yes, I was. Yes, I was. Yes, 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 I was. Yes.
Living glam, living rock, living with Jonathan and Katy. 6, 7, 8. Welcome to Living with Jonathan and Katy.
That's the best it's gonna be.
That is, you guys. Are we nominated for a Grammy?
I think we may just be.
Do you remember, like in the 2000s, you know, Chunky Highlights were there, and it was everyone like Christina Aguilera. I feel like to the Grammys, she wore like a belt as a skirt, and then she had a scarf, and then she made it into a top, and it just like held her boobs up.
Yeah,
and
I
then
do.
she had like probably a newsboy cap on.
Ew.
Because people are like, it's the Grammys, I'm rock and roll,
Yeah,
and that's what I wore to homecoming that year too.
beautiful. You gotta show out. Kids out there listening, if you're going to a winter formal, if you're going to a homecoming, if you're going
If
to
you're going to a
prom,
hoedown,
yeah,
I loved to fall hoedown. We used to
Fall
have a
hoedown.
blackout dance, and it was all glow sticks and black lights. And then some years they tried to cancel it because they felt that it encouraged rave culture. But I was like, honey, where else am I going to wear my pleather blue
I mean, it does encourage rave
like
culture, but that's
chunky
not bad.
heels? Yeah. I love the blackout dance. It was so great, and I crimped my hair,
Ugh.
and I had silver, just a line of silver on my eyes
One
because
thing
it was
that-
the millennium.
One thing that I really hope doesn't come back, and I'm starting to see it on runways a little bit, and people need to just throw them out, is crimpers. Stop crimping. Right now, what they're doing is like crimping one thing on the hair and leaving the rest not crimped. It's like, ew, it doesn't look
But
good.
Britney iconically did that in her Stronger video. It was
Yeah.
crimped all around, like crimped not, and then some were like tendril curled and not.
Yeah.
And boy, was that rock and roll.
Katie, this brings me to today's episode,
Yes.
where we have very funny comedian Kirstal Adams on to talk about cultural identity, particularly with her identifying with her blackness,
Yes.
and the cultural things that come along with that. And there's something very interesting about you as a white woman. So we're switching to the other end of the
Yes.
spectrum, where you have told me that you don't fully identify with white culture, which is actually one reason I think that we're friends, because you grew up around a lot of Latino-ness. I mean, you're not Latina, but you knew a lot about things, and I thought that was very intriguing that you knew certain lingo and you knew certain things that I never expected a white woman
Yeah.
to know, you know?
Well, it's interesting. And now I'm about to say everything that gets white people canceled. Number one, I don't really feel white at heart. No, literally. But these are things that honestly,
To quote Pink, we're all pink inside.
We're all pink inside. No, so I've often tried to untangle this, because not identifying with white culture, but coming from a family that is the whitest of culture, being that my parents met at the Renaissance Fair, they're into Ren Fair things and all this stuff. And I was like, why do I not like connect with all this stuff? But this is my theory now of my own cultural understanding and identity.
But before you say this,
Yes.
for the listeners, what I want people to understand is what Katie is talking about is she is truly talking about culture. She's not talking about like
Skin color.
no,
Or what do you mean?
and you're not talking about white stereotypes. You know how people are like, white people love mayonnaise.
Yeah.
You're talking about like European paganism, the maypole, things
Yes.
about Celtic things,
Old white things.
Viking things,
Yes.
like old cultural, like your forefathers type things.
So
Okay.
I think what's interesting, so this is my latest theory about why, well, one, growing up in Southern California, there are many immigrant communities. And so by default, if you're a suburban kid, you're probably going to school, if you go to public school specifically.
Honestly, though, even in private's very diverse.
Yeah,
too.
it can be diverse, and that doesn't mean that people don't self-segregate. And like
Right.
growing up, a lot of my friends, like I still had white friends, but a
Yeah.
lot of like mixed or Chicano, like whatever.
Yeah.
But this is what I think I've realized: a lot of my close friends, the majority of them, are first-generation immigrant, Mexican, Filipina, Vietnamese, Russian. You know, all these.
Yeah.
They're either first generation or they're like, you know, family's been here,
African-American or
whatever it
Jewish,
is,
yeah.
And this is what I think I realized is that growing up, I felt very outside of mainstream culture, which people can say is mainstream white culture, because my family was very unusual because they're so into this old world shit. It's almost like they're immigrants. Like, but the thing is that they didn't immigrate to this country. They immigrated to this century because everything my parents are into is old white stuff. So like Renaissance fairs, we're dressing like peasants, you know,
Yes.
paganism. So they're like, oh, we got to do a solstice ceremony and like bless this and sing this old wassail song to the apple tree. Like stuff that you're like, nobody knows what that is. Nobody even does that. Even in Ireland or wherever, they're not doing this shit still, you know?
Right.
So my parents had a fascination with that old folk things. My stepdad is in a Scandinavian folk band. My mom
Yeah.
is in an Eastern European singing group. They like old world, nothing from this century. So like growing up, like in my mom's house, like I don't even know what 70s music or folk, like when people are like folk music, they're talking about like Bob Dylan or like Joni Mitchell.
Right.
And I'm like, I know what Rembetica is, which is 1800s Greek village music.
Rembetica?
It's called a Rembetica.
That's your drag name.
It is. Rembetica Angelica. No.
That's great, actually.
My family is into just old stuff that nobody in this century does. And a lot of times in like public, they were like performing or doing stuff. And I felt very embarrassed. And I felt like, ugh, can we just be normal? And like my friends' parents would come over and be like, hey, how about those like, you know, Yankees? And they'd be like, we are not understanding what you're saying. I don't know why I gave them an accent. But it was like, so I was always trying to like blend in with friends' suburban families, right? Like normal, like we just go to Costco and we do X, Y, and Z and we just go to Little League and we're like normal, quote, American people. Because my family actually has nothing to do with like mainstream American culture. So in that sense, I realized, oh, I think I really identify with like immigrant kids because they have parents who sometimes they're embarrassed of or like don't share this cultural language with them.
Right.
And I also, but on the flip side, because my parents were so like into this old world stuff, they were very into world music, old global things, old world stuff. So I actually have a lot of exposure to many different cultures and people and things like that. So I also don't have the traditional like if you're a normal Midwestern American, like you're not going to have a Hindu family as friends. You know what I mean? Right. But like we did, and my parents had a like unusually like artistic, creative group of friends. So I'm in this weird space where like I also everything I liked was modern culture, suburban, but also like. Of course, I love pop. I love hip hop. I like dance, and I even now, like, I take African dance hall, like Afro-Caribbean dance hall classes, which is the moment I was like, I am my mother, because I'm like, oh, let me get into this like fun cultural folk. Technically, it's folk dancing, I guess.
What your mom does seem to like is she does seem to treasure specific ethnic group cultures, whether it's from Europe or the Caribbean or Latin America. She likes specific community-based cultures, not really popular culture.
Correct. They know nothing about popular culture. They could not, my stepdad could not identify Britney Spears at all. But yeah, my mom ran like an international folk dance group when I was younger. So we were like doing dances from all around the world and things. So I actually... Conversely, I did get this weird like global exposure thing, which I'm grateful for because in hindsight, I realized like, oh, that's why I like know all these things or know all these references. My mom also, shout out to her, is like a Spanish teacher who worked with like the immigrant community. So that's why I have much more standing of like, like Latino immigrant culture, like all these kinds of things. So, but I am a little bit of a weird like cultural perspective person, but I have said, and I'm not, this is a thing that white people like to say, but I'm not like, I'm literally saying, I had somebody tell me this just the other day, but I've had like many friends be like, but Katie's not really white, right. And yes, of course I am. And yes, I'm a white woman with privilege, all that stuff. But it is funny because I'll like talk to them or be like, oh, and I know about this thing, and they'll be like, oh, wow, so you're not like white,
right?
Which I consider a badge of honor, but also it's a weird thing of like, the badge of honor being that I'm like open and knowledgeable about other things,
right? And this
not that I'm like, oh, like I'm basically a black girl inside. Like I would never say that.
No. But this type of language that people say, I think very flippantly and almost just in a passing, they don't really mean it, but it is kind of because they are perceiving in you that you don't have a normalcy that or a normality that other white people in America have. And so they're saying, oh, so you're not true white. You know what I mean? They're saying,
I'm not like blind and racist.
yeah, but they do this to people of color too, where they'll say like, oh, that black person is the whitest black person I know.
Right.
Which is weird because it is definitely putting people into cultural boxes. Like, of course you're white, but white people can have culture and do have culture. It's just that sometimes I don't think people realize that like white culture can be very varied and diverse, as can black culture be very varied and diverse. So people think of things in a very simple-minded way. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's when we start to put things into boxes, like you know, like you've witnessed this many times with me, where people will, you know, we had a guest a while ago where they were like, oh, whoa, I didn't know you were Latino, you know, and then started to immediately talk about like, oh yeah, you should say, yeah, I'm proud to be Latino, essay, like start talking like that, as if that is all of Latinos and all of Mexican Americans. It's like, yeah, but I'm Mexican American. I don't go around saying essay to people.
Right.
And many Mexican Americans do not.
Right.
We are aware of people who do.
Yeah.
We are related to some.
Yeah.
But it's like, you know what I mean? It's like putting people in these boxes, you know? But that explains why you were so, especially as a teenager, into very mainstream modern pop things.
Oh,
you know?
I'm the only person who rebelled from my parents by being like, well, I'm going to be as basic as possible, you stupid bitches.
My favorite story is how your parents were very encouraging of like, especially your mom, learning other languages, whether it be Spanish or like old Celt or whatever. And you were like a little like girl, like in the house, in the home, being like, oh, speak English.
Yeah. So anyway, today we have Kirstal, who's a great, fun person.
Right.
She and I have bonded over many things because, again, I'm not really white. No. But she has a new podcast coming out, as you'll hear about. And we had a fun talk about what it means to identify with your people or not.
Or not. Everyone, I think, can relate to this in some way. It doesn't mean that you have a black experience, but if you're not black, what I'm saying is, everyone has felt at some point like outside of whatever culture that they're in, in whatever way. I mean, you know, we've seen people who obviously are like white passing or ambiguous looking Latinos, who many people try to put them in a box that's not Latino, even though they may identify as Latino and always thought of them as such. Like me, like I grew up very Mexican American, like both sides of my family raising me as Mexican American, but then people don't perceive me as the way they think a Mexican American should be. So then they legit try to tell me that I'm not, or question me, or it's like this point of like, let me figure you out. And it's like, you don't need to figure me out.
Yeah.
You can just accept what I said. There's no way you're going to get a taste of my life. You've not lived my life, you know?
Yeah.
But there's also people who don't look white passing. I've seen Latinos who definitely look how you would think a Latino looks when you say Latino, who are doing stand-up or just talking conversations about how people have called them white or whitewashed, or they talk white, or you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they are also someone who looks like they should be part of this, but then people are reacting them in a way saying, oh, you're actually not a for real thing, part of this culture. And that's kind of what Kirstal was talking about too.
Yeah.
It's very interesting because I think culture is something that's ever changing, and we can't always fit into every single thing in whatever culture we're existing in. We just can't. It's impossible to live up to everything.
Yeah.
You know?
Agreed. So, well, guys, enjoy this episode. Follow Kirstal. Have fun.
Oh, this is another
yeah.
thing. Follow Kirstal's podcast, which is called Black Card Rehab. And follow it wherever podcasts are available. This is a very interesting concept for a podcast. I've never heard of something like this. Very original. And Kirstal's a very funny comedian. It's very worth giving a chance.
Yep. So enjoy, guys.
I will say, though, that my Me Too story happened in front of a 99-cent store. Yeah, not all sexual assaulters are billionaires, you guys. I'm not sure if you're aware. Some of them are out here clipping coupons, you guys. sticking to a budget. You know what I mean? They got Excel spreadsheets, all right? I don't want to erase their story, all right? It happened in front of a 99 cent store. This guy okay, I should mention, he had no teeth, all right? Which, because the patriarchy does not respect mirrors, all right? Yeah, so this guy, no teeth, grabs my arm. And this is the thing about the Me Too movement. When it happened, there was a bunch of guys that came out and was like, why didn't they run? Why didn't they leave? And it's like, you don't always know what you're gonna do in a shocking situation. Like this dude, again, no teeth, grabbed my arm, and I swung around and I was like, excuse me? I don't know you. I know, shocking. Because a minute later I was like, wait a minute, did I just pretend to be a black woman? Like, did I just do the UPN version of myself? It's like the Lord had a plan for all those episodes of Moesha that I'd watched. And I thought about it, because normally I don't like it when white women pretend to be black women, but I think if you're being sexually assaulted, you can be my fucking guest. I would never wish it upon you. I would never wish it upon you. But if you've got like a good impersonation just pent up, you know what I mean? Like the Pine Sol ladies, you know what I mean? Or like you got a good Tina Turner just ready to roll, you know what I mean? Let it fly. I know you've been practicing, you know what I mean? Do the neck thing, do it all. Give him a Z-snap, you know what I'm saying? And then report back, okay? I want to know. I want to know how you caused a man to submit to you with your spot-on impersonation of Aunt Viv from Freshman's Day. Keep it going for a ride.
We are here today with a great guest.
Yes,
We
a
love
wonderful
her.
guest.
She is a comedian. She's a writer,
podcaster,
future, I hope, Fenty model. Ooh. And she's here.
Yeah. Please welcome Kirstal Adams.
Kirstal, yeah.
What up?
Welcome,
Hello.
Kirstal.
Hello.
Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
How do you feel in this moment?
Well, you said Fenty, and I was just like shocked back into the memory that Sephora has discontinued my favorite lipstick.
This was a journey, and especially this is important because
Wait, is it a Fenty lipstick?
No, but
Okay.
Sephora carries Fenty.
it's
and-
related.
Yeah.
So this is very important because we are having you on today to talk about being a black woman who, struggles or doesn't struggle with her identity. But dark skin tone is a big part of being black. Don't know if you knew this.
Yeah.
And we had to go through the saga once. We were on tour or in Chicago, and your favorite Sephora lipstick,
Yes.
which was a purple,
Yes.
a witchy,
a
beautiful
shimmery
purple,
purple,
a gorgeous.
which I got a compliment on from none other than Whitney Cummings.
Ooh,
Yes.
Former model.
Yeah, a model. True,
Yes.
true.
Nose lips. Okay.
And she
Yes.
does have flawless makeup a lot.
Yeah,
Okay.
She really does.
she does.
So, and a sex robot. But
Yeah, true.
She does that for, man, it's herself that she
Oh.
turned into a sex robot. Anyway.
that's true. But yes. But
yeah.
we went to, and it was out at that store, I think, and you were devastated. And then I found it separately somewhere else and covened it over to you.
Yes.
And now we've found out, she texted me this
Yeah.
week, devastated that it is discontinued.
Discontinued.
Literally the only one out of that series. It was like, they were like, I don't know who came up with it, but somebody was like, you know what? Instead of like coming up with names for these lipsticks that are colors, we'll just say that like travel the world in lipstick form. So
Right.
like each of the lipsticks is like related to a place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't even remember what place it is. All I know is the number is 46, I
Yeah.
like a round number. And yeah, and I went there and I was like, do you have it? And they were like, oh no. And some girls just came in and asked for the same exact one. And no, and then they checked the website, like discontinued, but they have all the other places around the world except for the one, my purple lipstick.
And I don't care what it is, but this has to be Trump's fault.
Oh yeah.
Somehow.
No, but also that is interesting because that lipstick purple lipstick can be very tough to pull off for a lot of people.
Yeah, we've tried and failed, both of us, I think.
I mean, I look great in a purple lipstick as long as, of course, I'm overdrawing my lips.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
But the thing is to get it done right is very hard. And because my skin undertone
Is witch undertones. We've talked about this before.
Oh, yes,
Okay.
witch undertones. Yes, absolutely.
It's the color
Absolutely.
of deli olives. My undertones are a green, a brown, and like a dark yellow.
Okay.
So those are my undertones. And so sometimes if a purple smudges just a little bit, it kind of goes into my green undertone. It could be a little off the lip, and it will make me look like I'm plotting something evil. You know what I mean?
Which you usually are, but that's aside the point.
Right.
So do you think they discontinued it? And I mean, do you think the majority of people buying this are women of color, black women who they discontinued it? And
Oh, I mean,
about?
it's 100% racial. I'm, of course.
Yeah.
And honestly, look, they were only $8, which is actually pretty cheap for Sephora.
But why it's more devastating?
It's not just practical. Like, I mean, obviously, you know, I'm a public figure.
Yeah.
You know, I was closely associated with this color.
Yeah, it's a
but
power
also,
color.
it just hurts.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Especially because it's not like, oh, the company's having trouble, so literally half of everything is gone.
yeah, no,
It's
just this one.
one,
Which feels,
yeah.
yeah, I feel targeted.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because that is very. But makeup brand, I'm a big like makeup beauty influencer, like consumer on YouTube.
I thought you were like just gonna end with influencer.
No. I'm not a big influencer. I'm a big consumer
Yeah.
of the makeup influencers.
Yes,
I
yes,
speak.
yes.
I've noticed listening to myself. I speak weird back end ways. It's really odd. I'm like, oh, you could have just said this the normal way.
I do the same thing.
That's how we learn. Yeah.
I think it because we're all so fluent that we.
We just kind of mix. You have
We're
to
kind of like
know the
jazz
rules to break the rules.
musicians.
Yeah.
No, that's so stupid. There's a lot of makeup influencers on YouTube, specifically black women, who will do episodes, and they're talking about, let's say, a foundation brand, saying like they'll discontinue shades of foundation.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
Like I'm like, oh my god.
It's very rude. I have one. I mean, I found one and I've been buying it for years. And oh my God, if that foundation was gone, like same with the lipstick, I would be devastated. Like, yeah, it's very rude.
It's very, very frustrating. There is one nude I texted you about that was discontinued for me 4 years ago, and I've never been able to find it again. I've swatched everything, and somebody told me that your dream nude is the color of your nipples.
Oh
Did
yes,
you know
that's
that?
what. Yes, I actually saw a stand up the other day talking
Did
about this
you?
very same thing,
And I
was like, my nipples aren't purple, but
But it is. But I've in Sephora looked into my shirt and into my bra, and then looked at the swatch.
But what's weird is like my
nipples are blue, so that's weird.
No, mine are small and they're innies and they're pink. Okay? But guess this. So my nipples are pink, but then my dick and balls,
I didn't expect it.
they're brown. They're like a dark brown. And so you'd think if you have pink nipples, you'd have a pink dick,
I don't know
right?
if I would ever think
I don't know that. I don't know that.
But a brown dick and then pink nipples, you'd think my nipples would be also brown, right?
Yeah,
but they're not.
consistent shading.
Yeah.
And that's why the body is
You know what I
a
mean?
beautiful thing.
Like when Steve
like,
Hernandez takes off
You
his
guys
shirt.
are talking about lipstick. Let me tell
know.
you about this other stick.
Well, actually, I do think that is a good segue
Yes,
because possibly, this is how I'm going to do it. Possibly one of the reasons that is because you are mixed race and therefore, you have thoughts about identity and as does
yeah.
Kirstal.
Yes.
And that's how I'm bringing it around
Yes.
to us.
I always hesitate to identify as mixed race because, yes, you are correct. But also it's like, in what way are you talking about? Are you talking about mixed culture or mixed race? Because Latinos, many of us are already mixed race. You know what I mean?
Right.
So then it's like weird if like a mixed race Latino marries someone who's not Latino of another race, it's like you were already mixed. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's what. So it's like yes, but not in the way that a lot of people think, like where it's like, oh, one white parent and one not
Right.
white, you know?
I know you once said to me, you said recently, you go, I just wish I was half and half. I hate being 3/4.
Yeah.
Because you literally said, I think my life would be easier if I were half and half.
Yeah,
It would
because
become more clear.
it's so easy to explain half Mexican, half white. You get it. You don't need to ask questions.
Mm-hmm.
But when you say I'm 3/4 Mexican and 1/4 white, people are like, what does that mean? And it's like, it means that I have one fully Mexican parent and
Yeah.
one half Mexican parent.
God,
Therefore,
fractions. Fuck.
but
Yeah.
people freak out on fractions.
White
Yeah.
people love them.
Right. Once I had to do a podcast where I was talking about like Mexican American culture, and the host was like, oh, before it started, they were like, we have Jonathan here. He's 3/4 Mexican American. And it was just like, you could just say Mexican American. That is like the culture that I was
Yeah,
raised in.
yeah,
yeah.
You know, that is like the dominant culture, you know. But then the person he said it to, I guess, misunderstood the fraction. I guess thought he was saying 1/4, but the guy said 3/4. So then she went, well, at least one of us has a little bit. And I was like,
Jesus.
Wow.
You do need to learn your fractions.
Yeah. Yeah.
You have to learn them because you're now like that person thought I was 1/4 Mexican, and that's heinous.
That is awful. Yes, I know. Well, it is funny. So we, as we mentioned, like we're here to have Kirstal talk about. She has a new podcast coming out about identity, which is interesting, and I do think it is interesting because you feel like you are a Black woman trapped inside. A young white child? No, I don't know what I'm saying. Oh, also, can we do this episode without me getting canceled? But we'll find out.
No, but
No,
that's why we started the episode.
Identity. How do you feel about the way you look versus the way you feel and what you're supposed to
Yeah. Well, so you guys know the new show Mixed-ish. That's a spin-off of
Yes.
Blackish.
Yeah.
So it's so funny because there's so many jokes that I've seen just like in the Instagram posts or whatever for that show where I'm like, I intensely identify with this scenario of like, like, I don't know, just coming across things that, and somebody who looks at you assumes that you would know based on how you would look. But the thing is so I will say this about I'm very petty. And so
honestly, that's why
You identify as petty American?
Well, ever since I've like been going to your mic way back when you did your mic at to Love with Market, I think. I was like, there's something I like about her. I just like her. I get it.
Yeah. So, one of my things is like, if there is something that somebody else has created that I feel like I should be on.
Yeah.
Even if I didn't audition, like I cannot watch to this day. I cannot watch Dear White People because I feel like I should be on it.
Yeah.
And no, I did not audition. I didn't even know when the auditions were.
Yeah.
Like or I should be writing for it. Like
That's how I felt when there was a show on Lifetime about a girl who leaves her life to go to the Renaissance Fair.
Yes.
And I was furious to find out. Yes.
Yeah. So that's how I feel about Mixed-ish. But the thing is that for some reason, well, I know the reason. It's the thing that you're talking about where it's like people understand people feeling in between two worlds when you're mixed because it's literally in the name.
It's spelled out for you.
Right.
Yeah.
But when you are Black and you still have this experience of feeling like in between two worlds, I don't see very much of that at all in the media. Like I don't see stories like that being told and being talked about. And so it ends up being this way that I end up just reversely feeling very invisible. Like I feel like my version of this story is not seen.
Yeah. It's also because like Hollywood runs on stereotypes. They talk about them in commercial casting and everything. It's like it does not matter what you are, it matters what you look like.
Yes,
and so if people are like, but you're dark skinned.
Yes.
So why don't you feel and I, by the way, I don't want to say like you don't feel Black. You are Black, but I mean, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. Hollywood definitely cares about him. I mean, there are people getting Latino stuff that are not Latino and are just not mentioning it.
Oh, do I know who you're talking about?
Yes. And there's several people actually I have in mind for that. But they do really care about appearances. And so how do you feel that affects you in terms of...
I mean, I guess there's the thoughts and feelings I have about like how will I succeed, or like AKA how will I stunt on hoes, and then there's the experience of like just like interacting in society. So the way that I see it in terms of like succeeding in the entertainment industry in comedy is I'm going to have to create the thing. I'm going to have to tell the story myself. They are going to have to, like, the time when I'll finally get the things, you know, like the things that Issa Rae has, the things that, you know, all these people have that I want. Yeah. It's going to be at a point where like I've already made it to the point where like it's already embarrassing to them that they haven't already yet like been on my team.
Yeah.
It's not going to be the case. At least I don't think it is going to be the case where, you know, I'm up and coming talent and somebody kind of sees something in me. I think I'm going to have to prove it to them first in a big way.
Yeah. We were just talking about this the other day with Jonathan because you were like, I'm not Hollywood gay.
And I'm not Hollywood Latino.
And so you're like,
you have to constantly explain that and tell them why it's interesting.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I totally agree with what you said about you feeling like I'm not going to get plucked. I'm going to have to prove. And I definitely feel like all three of us, they both feel that way for different reasons, but in some way, you know, because there are just some people who just have that fairy dust.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And you just don't know how or why.
Yeah. And they hit all those like buckets. But if you're not, in the, like on their radar or like you don't fill the checkbox neatly and perfectly the way that they need, then it can be harder.
Yeah. But the concept for this new podcast is super original. I've not heard anything.
And very funny.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Can you tell us about when you decided and why you decided to start this podcast?
And tell the people what it is.
Yeah, so it's called Black Card Rehab. Black Card. I realized I had to say that because somebody said it weird the other day at a show. I was like, black car? What? Why would I rehab a car?
It's recorded in a car, right?
It's Black Car. It's Pimp My Ride, but audio.
Yeah, we only work on Lincolns.
Yeah.
And but yeah, so I talked about already like the industry side of it now, but the podcast I think more so relates to like how I feel like interactions and like societally, like how I'm perceived. So I just have this experience that I know it's not unique to me where I'm pretending to know something. Like I remember writing this tweet like a few years ago where I was like, oh, this fully typifies my experience as a Black person. Like I think the tweet was something to the effect of, you know, the song 5 on it came on the radio and I thought, oh, I remember the first time I pretended to know the lyrics to this song. And so I think a lot of times it's like I'm skating by because either the people I'm around, like, you know, either you don't want to be roasted, you're not in the mood to be roasted, you know, or you're just like, you just don't know them well enough to know like if they'll just completely like oust you from the group. Yeah. And so it was a lot of like just pretending or just like being the quiet person, you know, like if I just laugh right now, like and act like I know that line from Friday that everybody's quoting right now.
That's so funny. What can you tell us about your background and why you feel this like? Or why why you skipped being Black in some ways? Did you skip it?
Kirstal forgot to be Black.
She forgot to be Black.
Hated it.
But I do have to say about what you're talking about, the interaction, the references. Humans we communicate in references.
It's so true.
It's so, I mean, everyone knows that experience of like pretending to know something, but to have that be like part of your culture and then feel that's like a level. It's not just like not even, you know, like, oh, I'm not like cool, but it's something that I perceived with like straight guys in comedy because a lot of times
reference culture so much,
And I can't even imagine what it's like for like people who don't look like straight white guys. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Yeah.
But like when you look like one and then they think you're one and then you can't. I'm like, oh, I don't know. I've had whole things where I'm like, I don't know anything in that sentence. I know nothing in that sentence.
You're like, what is a Star Wars?
Because you know, straight white comics, there are a lot of references going.
yeah,
They love
yeah.
references, and I don't know.
Yeah,
the
I'll say
Goonies,
it.
I
I
don't
have
know.
not seen The Big Lebowski.
I haven't.
Me neither.
I haven't seen Godfather, or I've seen no mob movies. Yeah.
Oh, I've seen my share of mob movies, but not The Big Lebowski. I've not seen it.
Yeah.
Don't care about it. I don't care about the quotes.
People act like you've murdered somebody
I know.
when
Yeah.
you say that.
I know.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm sorry, have you seen Labyrinth?
Right.
David Bowie, anybody?
Has there been a time when someone called you out or found out that, or just called you out like you didn't
Or
see
how
it,
do you not know that
caught
was-
you in like a lie maybe about you pretending like you saw it, and what was the reaction?
I don't know. I'm guessing that somebody may have caught me in a lie about it, but usually, usually people aren't that suspicious. Especially because I'm black.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, it's like it'd be different if, that's a thing that a lot of I've seen
You're
black
expected
people
to know
do.
about the
Right.
Lebowski.
Yeah, but I've seen black people do the thing where they're like they want to test like this non-black person. They want to test their knowledge.
yeah.
And so that's not really a thing that
Right.
happens to me
Yeah.
because I look like an insider.
Yeah.
Right.
So, but on the other hand, they use this phrase, which is why I called my podcast Black Card Rehab. They use this phrase revoking your black card, which is
Right.
very like it's very shaming, it's very exclusionary. It's not like let's help you let's help you
Integrate,
understand,
assimilate to the culture. Yeah.
It's not welcoming, right? So then you just end up being like, well, fuck it, like fine, I'll just like keep watching Anne of Green Gables. All right. Like
Well, that's the interesting thing too. Like I feel like we've talked about before, but like certain things getting prescribed to certain races of like, if you like that thing, well, what are you, white now? Or what are you, black? You know what I mean? And it's like, there's experiences that are like, they're for everybody, but it is these weird like cultural things where it's like, maybe if you grow up like in the hood and you go to college, they're like, oh, what are you, white now? And it's like, well, everyone should have education and everyone should be able to watch Anne of Green Gables.
Yes.
And cosplay to it as well.
Well, especially with education and like financial stuff, it's because white people have put a monopoly on those things to be a part of whiteness. It's designed that way to keep it away from people. College or being middle class or upper middle class, keeping that mostly white for most of American history has put that not just in our heads, but like that's why.
Yeah.
it's
And I'm not pushing
harder
like
for-
how it got to be that way, but
Right.
there are things that it's like, don't do that because it's X. And it's like, no, everyone can just enjoy. I love Mexican candy.
Right.
Was I born to? No, it hurts me, but I like it so much,
Yeah, and I think there's this thing where it's like, I just feel like we should be able to like enjoy. This is the thing, is that people don't understand that what they like is not, it's not something that happened naturally. It doesn't happen in a vacuum. The taste that you have, the types of movies that you've seen, it happened based on where you come from, which is why, it does get annoying when over and over, like you hear all these references to The Big Lebowski, is because people are like, they're actually blind to the fact that they have a culture.
Right.
And the reason that they've seen that movie is not because everybody saw that movie. It's because they came from a place where a lot of people would like that movie.
Yeah.
And so, but I guess part of what I like about this discussion is a lot of times when people find out what I don't know, when Black people find out what I don't know, they're like, they ask me, and then I kick it back to them. I was like, well, who introduced you to that movie? I'm like, you were 9 when that came out. Like, how did you see, Waiting to Exhale as a 9-year-old?
Yeah,
You know
yeah.
what I mean? Like, I didn't see that because my parents were like, that's a movie for grown-ups.
Right.
Like,
Yeah,
so
yeah,
that's
yeah.
why I wasn't watching it. I didn't grow up in a household where we were like just allowed to watch whatever we wanted to watch. And, adult things were adult things. And then there's a whole other aspect of like, whose parents or whose neighborhood really cares about like making sure their kids hold on to Blackness, right? So then there's that whole other discussion, which is not something that my mom or my dad really like had like as a deep value. Like they didn't attach a value to being Black, right? They wanted me to be proud of who I was and what I looked like, but they didn't attach value to like, you know, making sure that I knew, you know, Black directors and Black singers, Black music, you know, like I was exposed to it. So I know a lot, but quite a bit, but I don't know, you know, like some people have like encyclopedic knowledge of all these things because their parents had a value for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you?
Wow.
So you grew up. Tell us how you grew up.
I grew up in the suburbs, and my parents were both Christian, so it was also pretty conservative. Not so conservative that like we couldn't listen to certain types of music, but definitely like movies and stuff like that was very tame for a really long time. I will say, we took a very sharp left when I was in my teens and the Austin Powers movies came out. My dad took me to see all of those in the theater, and we watched those, and I cringe to this day that we saw those together.
So funny.
I just watched through all of them, just like
I bet they're
being
insane
a Netflix
now.
zombie with my boyfriend and I.
Yeah.
And we were like, these hold up. These hold up.
Honestly, I loved them.
Yeah.
you know?
I did too.
They're so funny.
But imagine watching those with your very Christian dad.
Yeah. I wonder why that got through the filter.
I don't
but hey.
know. He's like, yeah.
Do I make you Randy, baby? I don't know. I had to do it.
Maybe he missed it.
It feels like it's 1999 again.
It's our favorite year.
Someone say what's up.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah.
So I grew up in the suburbs, and I also went to private Christian schools from the age of 2 to 18. And not only were they private and Christian, they were also predominantly white. Specifically, my middle school to high school, very white.
Where'd you go?
Arrowhead Christian Academy in Redlands.
In Redlands, okay.
Yeah. And
how many in that school? How many other Black kids were there?
Ooh, good question. So in my graduating class, I think there was 3.
Out of how many?
Out of 80, 81, I
Yeah.
think.
Wow.
Yeah. And I remember, so there was this very funny sketch on Mad TV about the outtakes of The Wizard of Oz. And one of the outtakes, Dorothy was, you know, skipping down the yellow brick road, and she hears, like in the background, she hears, ah, ah. And then she stops. She's like, Toto, what's that? Toto, it sounds like a Negro in distress.
Oh.
And I lost it. So yeah, I had this one Black friend who, when I would see him in the hallway, I was like, what's that? It sounds like a Negro in distress. So, I mean, that was very fun. I mean, that kind of was probably the beginning of like being very free and joking about race, like very openly, you know.
And were you all like 3 friends? Like, did you gravitate towards each other?
No. So there was one guy who we carpooled together every day, and I don't know what it was, but there was something very stubborn in me where I was like, I'm not going to be friends with him. And and this is very sad because I think really, truly what it was is there was a slumber party where there was a girl that kept trying to get me to say that I liked him because she wanted me. She was like, that was as far as her imagination could go. Black people should be with other Black people, and of course I must be attracted to this guy, and I was not. Yeah, you know.
Wow,
that makes sense.
Yeah.
So growing up in that environment, obviously, of course, you weren't like.
Yeah, I mean, I just wasn't exposed to a lot of, you know, I will say this one thing that was very awkward and only, you know, I've realized over time, like, so in my elementary school, they were very, I don't know why, but they were like, we will execute a Black History Month with, yes.
Starring Kirstal.
Yes. And I'm not kidding. Like literally, like we must have. I mean, I don't know how else. I didn't audition. Like
you just got the lead role.
So I ended up playing Rosa Parks. I I'm like a 5th grader getting arrested in front of all of my classmates.
Oh my God. But as a theater kid, Jonathan is like, good, you should be the star.
I mean, yes, because even though this is awful, in the movie that I'm watching, you're the star of the movie.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And this is something you have to overcome.
And well, speaking
my
of
God.
overcoming,
Oh my God.
I remember the first time I learned the words to "We Shall Overcome." It was my white teacher that taught us.
Oh, wow.
That's who I learned that song from.
Yeah.
Because we had to sing it as part of the play.
Yeah. By the way, guys, it is Martin Luther King Day as we
It is
film,
Martin
my
Luther
God.
as we
King
record
Day.
this, and we
Yes.
did not do that on purpose,
Yes.
but it's fun.
Honestly,
But he did.
Yeah.
no, honestly, I thought you did do it on purpose. I did. I was filming a makeup video that I sent to her in the bath. So I had beautiful shimmery makeup on in the bath, and I looked at the calendar and I was like, oh my God, it is MLK Day and we're recording Kirstal's podcast.
I did not do that
And
on
I literally just went, Katy, and I just shook my head, and I knew because I didn't realize it, so I was like, oh, she definitely orchestrated it.
I mean, I love a theme, but not that much.
I know.
Oh my God. So, but when you were at Rosa Parks in your class, did you crush it? Please don't. I mean, you had to have, right?
I'm sure I did.
Thank God.
I'm sure I did. I mean, yeah.
Oh my
I
God.
crushed everything. I also played like a knockoff. What's his name? Picard. Okay, so this is
Wait, what?
Jean-Luc Picard from Star Trek?
Yes.
What?
Because so we had plays every spring and Christmas, and they were always like very Jesus focused. This one was wild. Like I literally started off the play by saying Stargate 45791. Like that's how the play opened with yes.
Were you
This
in a
sounds amazing.
Wait, were you in a bald cap?
No, I don't think I was.
Wow.
Did
they put you in an afro?
I did also play Moses in another one.
Well,
I killed it.
Hey, you're
Whoa,
versatile. I
I
love
didn't
it.
know.
Yeah.
but also Moses is almost like, that feels like one of those figures that's like, honestly,
Genderless.
they should be like if it should always be someone that you would not expect to be Moses, because
Oh,
it's
yeah.
that kind of like
The
it
God-
just makes it more like powerful. you know?
Yes.
Like when
yes.
Alanis Morissette played God in Dogma.
Did she play God?
Oh yeah, it was like really
God would be Canadian.
Yeah.
Wait, and what did she play?
She played God in the movie Dogma, and she
That's right, that's
walks
right,
out and
that's
she's wearing
right,
like white and her
that's
hair's all long and she has like
Yes.
flowers in her hair, and I think she doesn't speak,
Oh,
which is the way I like her. No, I'm kidding. I love Alanis.
Yeah.
And Alanis. Side note: Alanis is not sending her child to school. At all. He's going to be self-taught. And through crystals. Anyways. But truly, that is true. And it's also, I'm pretty sure, illegal. But anyways.
not in Canada.
Oh, God. I don't know. Anyway. So back to your iconic
Yes.
starring roles in school.
Yeah. And, well, I remember one time in rehearsal, because the guy who I will never forget the guy who arrested me. His name is Jeremy.
Okay.
Unfortunately, we did nickname him Jeremy. And
it's a classic, though,
It's
you know?
right there.
Yeah.
It's
That's
too
his fault.
And but yeah, I remember one time he was too rough in rehearsal. Yeah, I was like, we are acting.
Oh my
Yeah.
God.
Yeah, and somebody had made us little picket signs, so we
Yeah.
were like marching around in a circle, me and the other black kid, and like I don't know, you make a circle with two people, but
You never want to be that white actor who's like, he's amazing at playing a slave owner.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, you never want to be that person.
Oh
he
my
seems like
God.
he was born to play it. He loves
know.
it.
Who's
wow,
that
so
guy
he
that-
got
yeah.
to...
yeah, you got
Into
to
character.
arrest me and to kick me off this
Oh
bus.
my
yeah.
God.
And then one year I remember we watched like a very traumatic video that had like the people getting like dragged by dogs and like
Oh,
with
yeah.
the I mean, we're in elementary school. I'm like, this is what they're showing. I'm crying.
Yeah.
And then when we would like anytime we would get to slavery and like we're reading out loud, it was so weird because I literally felt people like looking at me like
That's
while we're talking about it. It was like, yeah, it's very strange.
Wow.
really.
like wondering how I must be feeling. Like, I don't know, like all the thoughts they were thinking. I wish I could ask them like what was going through their minds when they were looking at me. I mean, but I felt, I mean, also it could be just like my, remembering in a certain way, because also just feeling very self-conscious, like knowing like I'm the only person that this has like affected, and and now we're here and we're not talking about it. Like, I guess everything's fine. Like,
Mm-hmm. When you were growing up, like your closest friends, what did you have like very close Black friends?
So, I mean, one of my close friends was my cousin, she's Black, but, and I remember I had 2 white friends, white best friends named Krista. Now,
Krista and Krista?
Yes.
And you were
Kirstal.
Yes, bitch. Yeah.
Oh my God. Why didn't you guys become a girl group?
Yes.
We couldn't be the KKK. That's why. I mean, my God.
You need to make that a bit. That's so funny.
That is so funny.
Oh my God.
Was it already a bitch? I walked right into it?
No.
Oh.
That is so funny.
That is a good
Also,
bit.
Krista, like I've never even met a Krista in real life. I feel like it's a babysitter's club name or something. Like,
Your hair today is very Krista from the 80s.
I love it. Well, I live for it. And I did put moose in it.
It does look very 80s in like a really real way,
I love it.
Yeah.
But anyways.
I'm not saying it as an insult.
No, it's fine.
Every
No,
time I'm saying it's so
didn't.
80s, she goes, well, I love it.
Well, I love it. So fuck you. But so you and the Kristas.
Yeah.
Did you guys have like a tell us. I love
that. I mean, so me and the Kristas, I mean, one of them is for sure a Trump supporter now. We actually are friends on Facebook, and she's like, I think / hope she's the only Trump supporter I'm on, because she does post some funny memes sometimes, like
about like liberals or like snowflakes.
No, just like those ones I always hate, but like the other ones that she posts, I have gotten a good laugh out of. But so, and then the other one, I don't know what happened to her. I have no idea, but they hated each other, so that was interesting. I was usually
all white women hate other white women. I just want to say. So you guys know who you are, bitches.
But then like, let me try to. Who are my close friends in middle school? Yeah, middle school. No, they were all white. High school, and then my best friend from high school, also white. And I mean now my best friends are like, I have three really close Black female friends, and one Taiwanese friend. Yeah, and they're all like really close. But the thing is that it took a while for me to find other Black women who I felt comfortable enough to be myself around. And I felt like either got me because they came from a similar background as me, or maybe they didn't come from a similar background, but they're like, their mind is on this very like open level. So where they're like, in fact, I would say this of both, they make everybody feel comfortable. Yeah. They make everybody feel like they can be themselves. And I know like on both ends, like, the Black women that I don't get along with, on both ends, on their end and on my end, there is like part of why we're not getting along. It's coming from this insecurity. There's something about me and my presence and where I come from that makes them feel insecure, and vice versa.
That's really interesting.
Yeah. And so, I mean, I noticed that, like, I remember like a few years ago on stage, kind of feeling that thing, just kind of feeling like, oh, like the Black women that are not predominantly in this audience but are here are very closed off to me, like and I usually feel like it has to do with like, oh, they know that our backgrounds aren't the same, and they feel like either I'm gonna judge them, or maybe, and I already feel like they're judging me. I mean, obviously, but so
I hate to be very Hollywood about this.
Oh yeah,
but I mean, I really hope that you're writing like a movie or a pilot or something to do with this subject, because it's something that people don't really talk about, and you don't see that portrayed ever, and that's such an interesting subject, and it's super complex. Well,
I'm really hoping. I mean, so I've also tried to build up, like I think what I'm trying to learn this time around with this podcast is like how to build out the world. And so part of that is meant like building out like the Instagram account, the social media accounts. And so even in that, I'm seeing ways that like I'm learning how to write and infuse my experience into these small like either videos or photos. And also what I love about it is like I think I'm finding the people that identify with this experience.
That has to be really nice and comforting to find.
Yes, like having like creating a meme that's like this meme literally happened to me, and then having comments like, oh girl, this is me, or like I can't wait because this is like I haven't watched that either, you know, like yeah. Mm-hmm.
Did you when did you start to feel like growing up, I mean you like feel a sense of otherness, but like when it comes to like there's one thing to be like Black growing up around white people, but when did you like really start to think about like being a Black person around other Black people? Like in college, did you start to like meet more people?
No, it was before that. So yeah, so I went to predominantly like, you know, white private Christian schools, but the church that my grandmother and my aunt went to was Black.
Oh, okay.
And so that's when I felt the most outside. Like I felt the most drawn to it because I'm like, it still feels a part of me, and I really like connected with the music and like loved the way it felt. Mm-hmm. But when it came to like socializing, I felt really on the outside and like really insecure. And so and I would go to that church for like I think the whole time, like probably let's see, age 6 to 18. Mm-hmm.
What made you feel insecure, like in talking to people?
Well, one was like, I just didn't know how friendships were happening. Like, I'm like, did I miss a beat? Do people just you know, like I never really gained friendships within that church. Mm-hmm. Like I would be there on Sundays and like I would go to the Sunday school, and sometimes I thought it was because I wasn't there every Sunday, you know, because sometimes I was like with my dad or, you know, some weird thing. But I couldn't figure out why it was that I couldn't seem to get a friend there. And because it just never happened. It seemed to happen for everybody else, but it never really happened for me. And I was really, really shy for a long time. And I still consider myself pretty shy. I mean, when I need to step up, I know I can and like put myself out there, like friendship wise. And I've always been this way where it's like, I'm in high school, in college, like, and beyond, it'll be like, I can sense the person that I am going to connect with. And I'm like, and I already know, oh, this person is going to be my best friend. And then I'll tell them. Or like, I'm like, we're supposed to be friends. And I'm usually right. I'm always right. But yeah. And I think it's that level of like confidence of like, I know the connection when I see it, but not to say that you know, I couldn't have had other types of connections with people that weren't the same way that I kind of have that deeper connection. It never seemed to come to fruition. Yeah. And I don't fully know all the reasons why. I know like, yeah, I don't know all the reasons why, but that's when I started to feel,
you started to feel outside or whatever.
Have you ever talked to your parents specifically about how you feel about this?
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't think I ever talked to my parents specifically, like not in this way. See, the interesting thing with my mom is, so my mom was an Army brat. And so they traveled a lot. Like the first 2 to 3 years of her life, she lived in the Azores, which is like an island off the coast of Portugal.
The Azores, where Nelly
Yeah.
Furtado's family is from.
Yeah, so she spoke Portuguese like when she was a kid, and like doesn't remember anything now. But so they bounced around a lot, and so for her and her sisters, like they really never got, I think, connected to or like rooted in like Black culture. Like I think her parents were literally like American dream, like let's own a house, like let's settle down, like, you know, not at all focus on culture like did not culture dreams following, you know, that completely escaped them. It was like we do these very defined things, and a lot of that comes from the restrictions of race.
Right.
You know, just understanding like there's only so many things that this world is going to let you do, and so we're going to, you know, use whatever we can to get whatever we can. And so that's kind of the box that they fit into. So none of this, like, you need to know where you come from sort of thing. Like, that was not. And so my mom grew up kind of the same. That's how she grew up. In fact, one of the reasons she put me in dance class is because she felt like out on the outside, she felt like she didn't have rhythm. She felt like she didn't like fit it, you know? So she was like, I want to make sure that I give this to you. I want to make sure that you have rhythm. Yes,
rhythm.
The gift of dance.
It's like in Sleeping Beauty when each fairy comes in gifts.
Yeah.
She's like, and I give you rhythm.
Yes.
Do you think, because I've noticed this in different communities other than the Black community too, about like other POC communities where there is kind of a pursuit of this American dream and the restrictions of race that you were talking about. One of the sacrifices of that almost seems to be culture with many people. I know not everyone,
But all immigrant groups, yes.
that
Absolutely.
restriction on race in terms of entering. Do you think there's something to do with entering a new echelon of economic status on certain things that you're just pressured to forget or not bring with you? Do you think, or is that not I don't know, what do you guys think? Is that not a founded thing?
Absolutely. I mean, there's no denying with the systems and everything, like everything was assimilating to white culture. I mean, even like my white family, like my stepdad's family is Greek. And in the like 1920s, 30s, like they were like my grandfathers and great uncles or whatever were in Boston. They changed their name from Yiannopoulos to Garner. They never spoke Greek. Even now, like the younger generations are like, let's speak Greek. And they're like, it's a mistake. Don't do it. Like everything is about assimilating to WASP culture. I mean, even that, and those are white. I mean, they're great. They're great white Greek. Bleh.
But that
they're
also
white people.
is a great point to show how like things were in the past so bad for people of color in America, because even for other white people, whiteness was still narrow. There, I mean, remember when the Irish came to America?
Oh, when we were like,
they
gross.
people didn't consider Irish people white.
No, I know.
Because they were Irish?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
It's like, which is so laughable now because they're like some of the whitest people.
Yeah, but Italians, so if that's how it was for other white people, for a Black
Of trying to
person,
get
are
into
you
a
kidding
club
me? Yeah,
that they already should have already been.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think that hating your own culture was seen as a benefit, to like, you know, abandon it, to like, you know, not prize it, to not. And especially if you're already living in a community where you don't see a lot of yourself, it's very easy to do. Like one of my guests on my podcast, like, you know, even though the area that she grew up in, it was like mixed in terms of class, it was predominantly Black. And so people are seeing the ways that you can achieve things and get get some of the American dream, but still be very Black.
Yeah.
Right. And so, but if you don't have that as a model, if you don't see that it's possible, right. And if you're actually shown the opposite, that like people are being punished for exhibiting Blackness.
Yeah.
Right. Then you tend to not value it, and you tend to put emphasis on the things that you only believe will help you to achieve.
Yeah.
And Black culture is also this very nebulous thing. I mean, of all of the, you know, the groups that have come here, because it was like ripped, right? So some of the Black culture that we have is also very new. Right.
Yeah.
It's a lot of very new things, and it's a lot of people holding on to, you know, people that have created different forms of art, you know, like whether it's poetry or books or types of music. Right. People are holding on to the information about these because the deeper traditions were lost.
Yeah.
The ones that go hundreds of years back, they're gone.
Yeah. It's also interesting, something that I was thinking about, like if you grew up in the white suburbs, something in the conversation, like cultural conversation now, is like because of so much Black appropriation that like people are like white suburban culture is Black culture. So it's like a weird like snake eating its tail because of like if you grew up as a white middle class teenager, then you grew up exclusively consuming Black culture and appropriate. Like it's so confusing.
The insane thing is I remember being in high school and like having this white kid try to like connect with me, asking me if I knew, like I had listened to the new Dre album. And I was like, it was the first time that I had realized like, oh, I'm expected to know that this white kid expects me to know this purely because I am Black, not because he's heard me listening to hip hop, not because I've said anything that indicates that or I speak a certain way. It's literally because I'm Black. He thinks I've listened to the Dr. Dre album.
Yeah.
I mean, I had to hop on.
Yeah. And also, I mean, that was the banger album of the 2000s, was it not? The Chronic 2,
yes.
right?
Oh yeah, the Chronic 2 was big.
Yeah. But that is an interesting thing too of like that there's an idea, right, of what is culture anyway. Like do all Black people like hip hop? Not necessarily. You can be Black and not that, but then hip hop is Black culture. But if you're not a Black person, that's like, it's the thing. Like everyone should have the freedom to be into what they want and express what they want, and not have something that you like detract from another identity.
But that's the cool thing about culture too. Like you don't need to subscribe to everything in order to be like a part of it, you know?
And that's, and I 100% feel that way. And I remember I don't know. I think something happened in college. I was a social major. I don't know. I think maybe also getting friends and like meeting people that felt similarly to me, where I was just like, part of why I'm not connecting with people is not because I'm not Black. It's because I am an overachiever. Like I just need to meet other overachievers. They get me all day. Like
of all races.
Yeah. It doesn't matter the race. It's like if this bitch is like, I must have an A for no reason at all.
Kirstal has a very funny joke that wherever she is, she looks like the manager because she's very like handles her business and is very like bad bitch about it.
I do have manager face, but and so, but I did come out of college, thankfully, with this very, very like strong sense of like, no, I am Black. And just because I don't know certain things or I'm not up on this part of whatever does not mean that I'm not Black. I am a Black person who is having a Black experience of America, and that makes me Black.
Yeah.
I also think that a Black culture needs to be put more into like the American education system. Like I remember I didn't know about Toni Morrison until I was an adult. Mm-hmm. We didn't read it in school. Mm-hmm. I didn't have it, and other kids did in their schools. Yeah. And I went for most of my schooling was at a Christian school where most of the kids and the principal and the administration were Black, but it was not in the curriculum.
That's interesting.
And but I don't think it's necessarily their fault because, you know, those Christian schools, they're like part of like an association of accredited Christian schools where like you have to jump through certain hoops curriculum wise and everything that you do in order to stay a part of this like elite Christian school organization. I don't know. I just think both in the public and private education systems, we need more things other than white history and white culture, you know?
It's funny. That reminded me of another conversation Kirstal and I had about like you feeling pressured to read certain things because you are Black, or like that you have to be like up on X, Y, and Z, and you're like, honestly, I don't care.
Well, somebody asked me on the podcast, they were like, you know, what's your like experience with hip hop? I was like, I would say that I love hip hop. Like I love how I feel when the songs come on, and like when I'm out, you know, dancing or whatever, I love. But in terms of like knowing, like having granular knowledge, or even having maybe even like a good taste for like what hip hop is, I don't have that. And that's always felt like homework to me, because I knew that in the back of my mind is like there's always this voice in the back of my mind that like if I were to start just go into like, oh, I should research and like find more, I'm like, but you're doing this. You know why you're doing this.
Yeah.
You're doing this to fit in.
Or to
you're
feel
not
like you're
doing this
supposed to be
because you
right.
have a genuine natural desire
Yeah.
that comes from, you know, you're doing it because you feel insecure.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, maybe there's sometimes where I do wish that, I don't know, maybe if I had like an older brother or an older cousin, which I didn't, you know, that would like kind of expose me to some things and like help me, but I didn't.
Yeah.
It was me. I was the oldest. So guess what? We're going to be watching Aladdin again.
Right. On repeat. Jonathan, are there things in gay culture that you feel pressured to keep up on or to like try to ascribe to?
Yeah. Oh my God. There's a lot of things.
Jock straps.
Jock. No, I do like jock straps. Drag Race. I
Oh,
remember. I do like Drag Race, but sometimes it feels like, yes, we must consume.
Right.
And I remember a former friend of mine said about Drag Race once, I just feels like homework now. And it was is a gay friend.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I do kind of feel that way. Certain icons and stuff. But I don't think it's the same thing at all, because gay culture is so... you know, you can kind of have your thing. Everyone has their thing.
Sure.
And because everyone comes at it secondary, you're not raised gay. That's something when you enter gay culture, it's a new thing that you do as an adult, really.
Right.
So everyone kind of has discovered it on their own and adds to it and stuff. It's not like from a young age, it's not like being Latino where it's like, that is a thing that you are raised from birth in, you know?
Yeah.
So feeling excluded in gay culture is like, yeah, but it's more, I think about like being excluded based on like how you look or like
That's interesting.
or what type of queer person you are, if you're like trans or you're a woman or whatever, like that's where the exclusionary, and I think people feel like they're not a part of the club. That is where it comes from more.
Yeah.
Not really like the aesthetics of the culture.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's weird. I never felt that I fit into my white culture. Well, it's funny because I was like, if Kirstal doesn't feel black enough, you get frustrated because you like feel Latino, but people don't think you look Latino.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
and I know I'm gay.
Yeah.
And people, well, I know I'm Latino too, but like you don't put things in your mouth.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess, I don't know.
And I don't feel white enough, honestly. No, and it's weird because I come from like the whitest family. You know, it's like my parents are Renaissance fair people. My parents don't listen to any music from this century. They listen to like 1800s folk music. Truly, my mom was in a folk dancing troupe. My stepdad's in a folk band.
Oh, Danny boy, like just like that.
Literally, I'm like, I feel like I grew up like my culture's like Gangs of New York because it's like the late 1800s in my parents' household. But I also growing up like they didn't listen to rock music. Like I literally am still like Janis Joplin. What is a Bob Dylan? Like I don't understand like a lot of these larger. I mean, it's not the same, but
I don't know her.
But it is funny that I'm like, or like with other friends, like pop culture, I should say specifically pop culture, my parents do not know or could not identify anybody.
Yeah.
And so I remember too, like even like my friends' parents would try to make conversation with my parents and it would be like, they have nothing to say to each other.
Oh, wow.
And they would just like be like, okay, well, because, you know, someone would be like, hey, how's that football game? And my stepdad's like, who is that? Like, they don't, you know.
Wow.
But the culture you're raised in, or like the values, you know, it's very, I don't know, it's a lot to unpack here.
I do remember one time my mom was like, I mean, I'm sure there was many others, but the one vivid memory I have of her attempt to like make sure that I held on to my Black culture was that she gave me a Harriet Tubman comic book. Which that exists. And you know, it wasn't her. It was like not at all like she wasn't a superhero or anything.
Yeah.
It was just the story of Harriet Tubman told in comic book format. And I think my mom was like, she'll like this. Like, I don't know why that version for me, but yeah, that I remember that. I remember, you know, because she gets a brick thrown at her head, you know,
God, yeah.
pow, you know.
It said pow.
Yeah. And yeah.
Oh boy. Did you have Black dolls growing up?
Ooh.
I just asked because my best friend is raising her daughter. She lives in New Orleans and she has like 3 white daughters, and they all have black dolls, and they only have black dolls, and they love their black. Like they won't have anything else.
The weird thing is, I don't know where it came from. I'm not sure, but so my dad for a while was dating a woman who she had a daughter. The daughter was 2 years younger than me, so we like spent a lot of time together. And I remember her daughter would always pick the white dolls, and it would make me so angry because she was black. I was like, why are you picking the white dolls? You're black. You should want the black dolls. So it wasn't until that point that I realized that I even cared. But I did have, so my first ever like stand-up set was about my mom getting me the American Girl doll, Addie. Yeah. And she, not only did she get me this doll, so like the dolls, when you would get the doll, like you'd open it up, and then of course there was like a full magazine to sell you more shit for the doll.
Yeah. And her backstory and her like.
Yes. Yeah. And so one of the things you could buy was clothes so that you can look like your doll. And let me just back up and say that Addie was the first Black American Girl doll. And obviously everybody, like all the dolls, the whole thing behind the dolls was that they were telling stories from like somewhat fictionalized versions of real stories from girls from different parts of American history. Mm-hmm. This girl was a slave. And she I guess escaped with her family, and her name was Addie. And so my mom, I like the clothes. I was born to be in a period piece. And so my mom, she actually made me the costume. Like she made me two or three costumes to look like the doll, because we didn't have enough money to buy them. And she made
they're also insanely expensive.
They're very expensive.
Like, fuck off, American dolls. Yeah.
Wow. So my mom made him one for me and then one for my cousin. And I was in like 5th grade, and I wore these to class pictures.
So wait. Are you saying you were dressed
yes, picture it.
as a little slave girl?
Yes, I was. Yes, I was.
Oh
yes. Yes, I was. Yes. Yes. It was like,
do you
scan and it's 1990. Oh wait, it's 1890.
Okay, wait. In my mom, because I had the Kirstal, she's a little Swedish girl, and you can see what they look like the trailers or whatever. Uh-huh. So she has like a white blouse, is that right? Or like
the one that I had was like
a peasant blouse, kind of?
No, it was like a white kind of like a piratey blouse. It had like loose sleeves and like kind of like a little cravat like thing
ruffle
here. Yeah, and then there was like a blue jacket and a matching blue skirt with a petticoat, and then like tall black lace up boots that I wore to 5th grade pictures.
Have you ever posted these pictures?
I think I have them. And the wildest thing to me is like, I thought back to that time, and because I mean, you would think you'd be traumatized by all the things that nobody said anything.
Well, okay, so now that because in my mind it's like
everybody went with it.
But what you're describing is a little bit different, because I'm thinking like when I think of Little Slave Girl, it's like usually like a tattered peasant blouse with like a long brown like potato sack skirt, and then like a head wrap or something.
I know.
That's like the like stock uniform,
right? And the thing is,
but like
at the end, look.
But she was 18. But then she was 1800s.
It was still 1990.
I know. I'm just like I'm literally trying to imagine you in your little.
Yeah, it was like the suburbs, honestly, the color purple, the suburbs, like that's what the.
But you were feeling yourself so hard, right? Like you were like,
oh my God,
you were like, can't tell me anything.
You can't touch me.
What was your hair? What is her hair?
I think I had it like half up, half down with like a little like matching blue bow.
I literally am. I have to Google this immediately.
I have pictures of it. Yeah.
Wait, I'm coming around to see.
Okay, it's cute. Honestly though, I get why you like it. There is something, I swear, there is a face for all little girls. It's 1800s. There's little like bloomers. There's black patent leather like boots. I don't know what it is.
Oh yeah, it looks good. It looks
it's still
crazy.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
I'm now picturing it in giant human form. Because it's very like, it's almost like this could be.
Oh my god.
Editorial. Like,
No, literally, you were in Lemonade.
Yeah.
So and you just you
Yeah.
loved it.
Oh my god!
Did you wear
yes.
it? Did you wear it as day wear elsewhere?
I'm sure I did. I'm sure I did. And I had like multiple, like I had that outfit and I had it like her Christmas dress.
Oh,
And
which I bet was
so-
really cute.
Oh
Actually,
yeah.
well,
God.
I wore
Also a
bell-bottoms.
dress.
I wore bell bottoms, very big ones, not like little, very big bell bottoms, to 9th grade art school.
Me too.
Okay, with my abuelito's poncho that he had from Mexico.
Nice.
And huaraches. And,
Oh,
and
man.
I thought that was the coolest
You had
thing.
your really long kind of froey hair.
No,
right?
I had
Not
it
that-
cut short for that day.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And I look back on that and I was like, that's just weird. I was just some kid in like a very Mexican but 70s outfit.
In my mind, everything I'm wearing in the 90s, I was always wearing a silver jumpsuit. I wasn't. No, I kind of was. It was the millennium.
You were just the alien.
I literally had silver tearaway
Millennium.
track pants that I would just wear, not even to volleyball, just all the time.
Katie, were you the girl in your school who the stuff that you wore, people were like, that is really cute. Like everyone loved what you wore?
I don't feel like I feel like I was like generic in 2000s. Like it was a lot of black pants with chunky wedges and like a cardigan.
Okay. Because I always pictured you in like the coolest new like neon capri, you know?
I did have a collection of capris and tank tops and matching
totally-
flip-flops. Okay, I bought all the Old Navy pastel tank tops and I bought all the Old Navy pastel matching flip-flops.
Of course you were.
And honey, every day I matched my eyeshadow to my shirt. So I was like, imagine a lavender eye, a lavender tank, and a lavender flip-flop. That was like my go-to.
So you were this girl.
Also, as a child who spent so much time in costumes, which my Instagram, you guys can check it out, is 90% me in
Didn't
costumes.
you go to prom as Moulin Rouge?
I did.
Yeah.
I did.
This is you.
I
were
did.
The girl.
Yes. I also wore a black wig to one prom. I don't know why. I was like Velma Kelly. I thought it didn't look like it looked like I was trying to cosplay Asian, but that was because it was the 90s,
Come on, Scarlett
2000s.
Johansson.
No, and I was wearing like an Asian print like skirt. Remember those were cool? Like that kind of like fun.
Yeah.
Scarlett Johansson's crazy. Scarlett Johansson is straight up like, I'm not sorry. She's literally.
She's like, as an Asian trans woman, I'm not sorry.
No, she's like, I should be able to play Asian. Like, she literally
like-
said that in an interview.
She said I should be able to play a tree if it's a tree. And like, yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
But yeah, wow,
stand
that
her.
is so funny.
Yeah. It's my origin story.
But in talking about your podcast, can you tell us of the episodes that you've done, like any interesting experiences that you've had, like kind of getting this started?
Yeah.
Any hiccups, you know?
Well, let's see. I mean, we did have there's 2 episodes that I'm like the people, they came on with something that they wanted to talk about and that they know a lot about, and it's something that, you know, so like there's an episode of about black hair. And I mean, for obvious reasons, I do know a lot about that. I mean, I want the podcast to be like inclusive. So at some points there are going to be things that I probably do know a lot about, or I do know something about, but you can always learn. It was interesting though in that particular episode because both my guest and my co-host, they both had seen the movie Good Hair by Chris Rock.
Yeah.
And they at one point, my co-host who is white, she was like, have you seen it? It's so good. I was like, I have a standard response when people ask me that, which is I've lived it.
Yeah. Totally.
But they did start talking about things about honestly, they didn't convince me to watch it because
Was it all stuff that you already knew? You're
well,
like,
I think the issue, and this is something that I thought in the back of my mind, but I didn't really say a lot because I didn't want to discourage people from watching that movie, you know, especially because I haven't seen it. Like I can't say don't watch it. But it is, on the one hand, while apparently he is presenting a lot of important, interesting information. There is this thing of like, but it's coming from the voice of a black man. So what are his assumptions about it? What are his biases? Like, what are his blind spots about it? And sure enough, my guest, pointed out, she's like, he has this bent as he's talking about it as if, like when he's talking about how much money black women spend on their hair and all this stuff, he presents it in a way where it's like, how this is so stupid,
like frivolous, and you're like, actually,
yeah. And she's like, but he doesn't understand what it's like to be working constantly trying to seem beautiful. Not even like forget society. How do you appear beautiful to yourself? How can you, even if you, like, we're talking about going natural, like going natural is, you stop putting chemicals in your hair, right? And but if you don't have the length that you want right away, it may take a while before you feel beautiful to yourself, before you actually can look yourself in the mirror and think, I do look attractive this way. Or maybe you can't wait. Maybe you end up putting something back in your hair or getting braids or whatever, because you can't get to that point, or it takes too long to get to the point where you feel like, I look beautiful to me. And that's something that I think it's not intuitive for a black man to understand. They would have to hear it from somebody else, like from a woman's perspective.
Right.
I'm excited about that episode because I am so, I don't want to sound ignorant, but like I'm very interested when black women talk about it. And I feel like you've talked about it a little bit with me, but like that journey and that it's such an emotional experience, and like what the physicality of like reclaiming that is. It's when you told me you shaved your head, I was like, wow, like not even like as a black woman, I was just like, as a woman, like I was like, that is very powerful. And like a lot of people or a lot of women don't go through that experience,
And men in general just can't.
I mean, me
way.
and Britney Spears, look, we have so much in common.
But legit, this is going to be, it's not technically racist, but black women looks very beautiful. I mean, like, no,
I love starting stuff with, this is not technically racist. Okay, hear me out.
What I'm saying, no, but in Black Panther, when they have all the soldier women and they're like all like short hair, like it looks amazingly like regal. And then what I'm saying is like two bald women, one is a Britney and one is, I don't know the head name of the soldier in Black Panther, but we look different is all I'm saying. And that's racist towards white people, I think. Is there anything you would like to promote? Anything we haven't covered? Anything you want to say?
I really would love, people to listen to my podcast. It's for everybody. I mean, it's funny. I want it to be fun and funny. I mean, if you're looking for like hardcore facts, I mean, that's what Google is for. I will say this, every 6 months or so, I do Google, like, I'll like just type in, like, what do black people, and then just see what the Google fills in, like, just because it tells you what people are looking for, like, what are they searching for on Google? What are people in their homes too afraid to ask a black person, but have been thinking about? Like, that's what the rest of the search tells you, and it's wild. Like, I've seen, why do black people have yellow eyes?
What?
Exactly. Why do black people not sunburn? Why do black people wash meat?
That's so weird.
Wait, what? Black people don't have yellow eyes. If a person has yellow eyes, they're
a wolf.
No. that means there's something medically wrong with them.
Yeah.
Like,
well, there are some black people who, like, I think it is like a melanin that's in their eyes that makes their eyes a little bit different shade. They're not like pure
yellow?
white. Yeah.
Oh. Okay.
So
I was thinking of something.
Yeah, but
very
yes,
different.
it could be a sign. But
Yeah.
but it's just very strange, like the things that people are too afraid to ask. And so anyway, I hope those people listen to this podcast. I hope people that probably think they know, but maybe could learn a little more. They just
Think they know, but they have no idea.
Yes.
MTV Diaries.
Yes.
Is that right? No Day in the Life. Anyway, Nate, I don't know. Is there anything you wanted to ask a Black person, Jonathan?
I mean, I have.
I'm the wrong one.
I remember the last question I asked you was about something very important. It was about payment. Yes.
Okay. Well, Kirstal, thank you so much.
Businesswoman.
Yes.
Where can we find you on social media?
And your podcast.
Yes, you can find the podcast on iTunes and Spotify, and follow the page. There are very funny memes on there. It's Black Card Rehab on Twitter and Instagram, and then I'm everywhere at The Dark Kirstal.
Yeah, and check out her stand-up. Look up her clip. Very funny.
Very funny.
Yeah.
Please go see her.
All right, guys. Until then, stay Black. Just kidding.
Living glam, living rock, living with Jonathan and Katy.